Martial Law with Marshall Chriswell this morning. This program intended for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. A guy like, say, Marshall Chriswell, who's on the line with us on this beautiful Thursday morning. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. A little cold, but
Yeah, it's a very nice morning as we get it underway
here this morning, and let's talk a little bit about estate law, which is a topic that we visit quite often, but it is so very, very vast, and there are so many different angles to it. I want to talk today about estate law from the standpoint of why does it take so long for these things to actually, from beginning to end, the distribution of an estate, all of the different issues with it. Why is it such a long process?
Yeah, and that's something that sometimes it's hard for clients to understand when they first come see me and someone has passed away and they say, okay, well, we need to wrap up this person's final affairs, and I say, all right, well, just be ready that this process in even a normal routine estate can take upwards of a year or 18 months, and there are reasons for that. There are lots of reasons for that, and some of them are things that are mandatory that happen in every estate, and some are things that you may be able to potentially avoid or make a little more go a little more smoothly with some planning.
Well, it's interesting when they talk about how something becomes a law. With Congress, and they talk about there are deliberately systematic things that are designed to make it a slower process so that everything is considered before something actually becomes a law. It might not be the case that much so with the state law, but it is a deliberative process, and there are, we don't want to call them shortcuts, but there are ways to expedite things.
That's right. And you're right in lots of areas of law, Todd. Due process is built in everywhere, and it causes delays, but it also gives everybody the opportunity to assert their rights and make claims and things like that. So, with respect to estates, some of the things that are built into the process are taxes, right? You've got to file certain tax returns when you're dealing with an estate. Number one is in Pennsylvania, we have an inheritance tax. Pennsylvania inheritance tax returns are due within 9 months of someone passing away. Often because of the amount of information you have to gather to file that return, you can't really file it until pretty close to that time, 6 to 9 months after someone passes. And then the Department of Revenue, the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue reviews each return and has to approve it, and there's another few months delay there. So that's one of the things that's just baked into the process that sometimes we can get it done more quickly, the tax return, depending on the availability of information and how organized things are. But that's one biggie. And another is there is a statutory there's a statute of limitations essentially for creditors of an estate. You know how you see the estates published in the newspaper? There's always a public notice of an estate being opened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That the purpose of that is under the statute is that there is 1 year. Creditors of an estate have 1 year from the date of the first publication of the estate to assert a claim. So if you have an estate where you're not positive that there aren't creditors out there, unpaid medical bills, credit cards, personal loans, who knows what it would be, then the creditors, sometimes you've got to wait out that 1 year to be sure that there aren't other creditors.
Mm-hmm. Of course, a lot of folks will say, I don't have any of those encumbrances on me, and I want this all settled as quickly as possible. But those systematic things, they're there for a reason, and if the situation were reversed, you'd want that.
That's right, and there are those cases where a child's parent passes away, and the child has been taking care of mom or dad's affairs for months or years at that point, and they know that listen, there aren't any other bills out there. I've paid everything. Nobody's given me any notice, and we can move things along a little more quickly with the understanding that if something pops up within that year, we're going to have to come back and deal with it. But there can be times when you're almost certain that there aren't additional bills. So, but that is just one of those things baked into the process that slows things down. But there are other things, like you said, that you can do, things you can do to make the probate process more smooth.
Yeah.
And one of the things that holds us up sometimes is if someone doesn't have a will, or they have a will that wasn't it doesn't comply with Pennsylvania law, or doesn't comply with doesn't have some of the formalities, witnesses and notaries and things like that, then you can have issues. And because if you don't have a will, let's say you die and you don't have a will, and you have 4 children, all of your children are equally entitled to serve as the administrator of your estate. Whereas if you had a will, you would have named 1 or maybe 2 of them to serve. But here, if you don't have a will, we've got to go and get notarized renunciations from each child that's not going to serve as administrator, giving permission to their sibling. And heaven forbid they don't agree. So those kinds of things, and along that same vein, not having the original will, right? So if you walk into the attorney's office and you say, "Here's Mom's will," but it's a photocopy. Well, if you don't have the original, you can bank on an additional, maybe even an additional month of filing a petition, getting consents. You got to file it with the court and get approval from a judge to probate a copy of a will. So, those kinds of things can be dealt with just with some easy, meeting with an attorney, getting, making sure that you have your ducks in a row.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of this will be a much smoother process if ahead of time, and well ahead of time, you do some things, you do some groundwork with your attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, an attorney that handles wills and estates will easily be able to identify those issues and say, listen, we should just take care of this stuff now because you don't want to be dealing with additional headaches and delays, in the future. So that's absolutely. Even if you think, Mom's got a will and powers of attorney, we should be good to go. Mm-hmm. There's value in just scheduling an appointment. I know at my office I don't charge for these kinds of consultations. You bring in documents, I review them. If they're good to go, they're good to go. I hand them back to you and say, hey, there's see me if you need anything else, but there's nothing I need to do now. But if there are issues, we can deal with them then.
And if you want a complicated process, why just don't have an estate plan?
That's right.
Because it's really going to bog down. In the end, you're going to be seeing an attorney no matter what. You might as well do it ahead of time and get that estate all lined up for you so that you can avoid some of the delays.
That's right. And other issues that I see that delay probate, delay the finalizing an estate, if you've got somewhat complicated assets. If you're a business owner, you're a small business owner, and you operate this business, as so many people do, sole proprietorship, single member LLCs or corporations, or and you don't have a plan for what's going to happen when you can no longer run your business. You've got to deal with that. There's too many people that become incapacitated, get sick, pass away, and their family members or other folks don't have any idea how to operate their business, need to wind things up, and it becomes a mess. So complicated assets like that, business ownership, unique collectibles and things like that. We want to talk about how those things are going to be dealt with. Because they can bog down the process.
Yeah, and in the end as well, especially if you're inheriting property and you want to rid yourself of that property because it's just not a part of your family plan. If it's tied up in this whole process, then you're going to be holding on to that, paying taxes on it longer than you probably need to.
Yeah, that can be true. If we can't get real estate things ready to sell in a timely manner because of some of these issues are slowing down the process, your estate and hence your family members, your heirs, are going to incur additional expenses. You think about the real estate market, and here we are in December. I have several estates where I would have loved to get the family home on the market in September or October to try to beat the winter, but we weren't able, for various reasons, weren't able to do that. And the market, of course, is not as robust in the winter time. And so here we are with the heirs realizing, okay, we've got to hold on to this place and pay, keep the utilities on and make sure the pipes don't burst and all these things through the winter, and hopefully get it listed or get it sold in the spring. So those little delays can just by the nature of things can turn into bigger delays. Yeah,
and they can end up costing you a lot of money too. He is Marshall Chriswell with us this morning. So with all of that as our backdrop and the idea that now is the time to get your estate all in order, and a good attorney will help you do that. There's a good one on the line with me right now. Marshall, if somebody wants to do all of this, get this process started, what should they do?
Well, you can always stop and see me in the old RMP building, which is on Church Street behind the post office in Indiana. You can call the office at 724-465-5826 or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Very good. Marshall, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks a lot, Todd. Have a good day.
You too. It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.